Hey guys, welcome back to the sixth tutorial series of how to actually use the BlueAlpha marketing plugin, which consists of our BlueAlpha MCP, which right now connects automatically to all of your Google Ads data. And you only need to authenticate yourself, so you don't need any like API keys or any setup. It's just a very simple authentication. We also have an MCP. We have an incrementality test runner as well in here, and we will be adding Meta, TikTok, X in the coming weeks that you can all chat to your accounts via Claude. So we already ran a bunch of different skills on the account. We had an auto-optimized brand refresh, SEO to paid bridge, competitive conquest, and an audience intelligence skill. We still have some remaining skills pending, like for example, a competitive counterpunch, a geo-expansion-scout, and a content to campaign skill. The recommendation was actually to run an incrementality test here, which I'm not going to do because I want to show you the geo-expansion-scout, which is in particular useful if we're considering adding, for example, new markets, then beyond the English-speaking markets that we currently have going on. So without further ado, I'll trigger this skill to look into, given our current campaigns that we have live on BlueAlpha, does it make sense to potentially expand into particular geos? All right. Starts to ask us for some further details on what potential geo expansion could look like. So what kind of expansion are we actually exploring? We can optimize within current geos, new geos, or like both. Let's actually look at both. Any specific markets you want to evaluate? For simplicity, I say no. And how much budget do we actually have for geo testing? Let's say we have another $200, for example, per day. All of these are like obviously very small budgets, but you will understand this is just for testing purposes. Great small hiccup here, and that's why we're doing these things live, where I actually had to compromise some of the chat and I had to just resubmit the details, but got it both optimizing current geos and exploring new markets. Great, $200 budget and no specific target markets in mind. And again, if we want to understand what is actually going on, loads all the different tools and starts to create different tasks. And then start to use the BlueAlpha MCP to actually like execute certain queries. All right, that's why we do these things actually live, so you can see how if it runs into potential issues, it actually deals with it. Like it seems like the stream kept deallocating, so it switched to like non-stream query, found some data, returned again empty dates, so fixed it and pulled also the impression share data at the campaign level, then started to check the volume by market and had to approve some geo criteria and IDs to actually run the keyword estimates for key markets. Okay, great. Has all of the data, is now starting to give proposals for actually Canada expansion markets, like for example, Canada, Germany, Netherlands, Singapore, UAE, alongside the current markets for comparison. All right, so after some initial hiccups, actually has all of the data and start to build a geo expansion report with obviously nice visualizations. We love when Claude is giving us nice visualizations. Looks at the last 30-day spend. We spent around 5,000. Search impression share, total conversions, and then looks at the current market performance. The United States is actually performing best. The United Kingdom, followed by the UK and Australia, and then actually Canada, New Zealand, and Ireland look like they're actually like draining, even though they just have only 2% of spend or 5% of spend. Expansion candidate scoring. All right, looking here to search at the monthly searches, for example, for some of the keywords that we want to rank. Looks like there's in Germany a lot of marketing mix models, in Singapore as well, and starts to give us a recommended budget allocation on who to actually like target, of having 140 per day on existing geos, which are like the US and the UK, and then new markets, for example, Canada, where we should allocate 30 days for a 6-week test period, as well as Germany for 30 dollar per day, 6-week test period. Classifies our current market classification. Yeah, the US is our star market, highest conversion rate of 0.21, lowest CPA, and it generates half of our conversions on a third of the spend. UK is a volume market. It gets most impressions, but converts at half of the US rate with a CPA of 572, right? Australia is an opportunity. It gets conversion rates above average, but the CPA is pretty high. And then we have Ireland, New Zealand, and Canada all drain, 0 conversions across both 30 and 90-day windows. Biggest findings, you're massively under-indexing on the US at only 18.5 impression share and overall 52% loss to rank. The high single ROI move isn't explaining to new countries. It's actually capturing more of the US demand. You're already losing. Fair enough. So maybe it's actually not smart to add additional budget to other accounts, but actually put most of the money into the US. Does this mean that we should put $200 per day into the US only? Perhaps. So it's a fair instinct, and the data honestly supports it more than the split I initially proposed. Thanks, Claude. You're currently spending around $60 per day in the US, capturing only 18.5. So if we would 4 to 5x more of the US spend available than you're currently capturing, the market already converted 2x. Adding $200 to the US, bringing it to 260 would likely still only get you to 35 to 40% impression share. You still have headroom, and every incremental dollar is going into a proven market rather than a speculative one. Counter argument is obviously diminishing returns as you bid more aggressively. To win those rank lost impressions, your CPCs will rise. That makes sense, but obviously we're not talking about like big money here on paid media per day, actually, because like these are all in the hundreds. It would actually recommend a middle path, putting $170 into the US and carve out 30 per day for example, single expansion test like Germany, because that has better volume, as we saw like up here, than Canada. All right. Thank you so much for listening in on this like 6 tutorial, and I hope you were able to derive value out of this. Talk to you guys soon.